Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Joelyn Drennan, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today in the show, Joelyn discusses framing for positive conflict resolution and then takes me for a walk. And later, author, father, and nonprofit founder Anthony Payton puts us on the path to success and prosperity. New Hampshire Family Now is brought to you by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Since 1962, the Charitable Foundation has worked hand in hand with generous and visionary citizens to maximize the power of giving and support, collaborate, and lead innovative initiatives. Initiatives like New Hampshire Tomorrow, which is focused on making sure children and families have access to education, healthcare, and career pathways to ensure every family member thrives. To learn more about New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and all their initiatives, go to www.nhcf.org. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. Hey, it's Nathan, co-host of New Hampshire Family Now. I wanted to take a quick break from the show because it occurred to me the other day that I've never asked you to subscribe to this podcast. Subscribing is free, and when you do it, it helps our placement algorithms, making it that much easier for caregivers across New Hampshire to find valuable information and strategies for their families. Also, you'll be alerted when a new episode drops. And if you like this show, leaving a review helps us that much more. So go to wherever you get your podcast, type in New Hampshire Family Now, and as the kids say, smash that subscribe button. I say click it, because if you smash it, then you're going to need a new one. Thank you and enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of New Hampshire Family Now, a show dedicated to digging up dirt on the family life of Joelyn Drennan.
Wait.
Joelyn, welcome back.
Thank you.
How's the family? What are you guys working on?
We're good. We are just back from vacation.
And where were you?
My in-laws that we haven't seen in 2.5 years. Thank you, pandemic.
All I can say is it sounds like had you trained for that marathon, you would have been fine because you would have made it back. But you did train for that marathon.
No. I failed. That's why I don't make resolutions. And how's your family doing?
We're good. So currently trying to teach my oldest son about like property and value by doing chores or picking up after himself. And so I'm trying to figure out, how to do that positively, because so much of it is about negative consequence, Don't do this, you won't have that.
Yeah. What have you tried?
I can't escape this earning your keep mentality, right? Which is like, you got to do this and then you'll get that. And then if you have that, you can do this, this, and this, which is 100% transactional.
Yep.
Because then it bleeds over to me, my mind, in things like empathy. If, I run over my brother and he is responding not to his brother's pain, but to trouble.
You should try first and then.
What does that mean?
So that means, if you want him to do something and he wants to do something else, you start, the language is first this, then that. So first you brush your teeth, then you'll have a story. So you're both getting what you want. And there's like the power dynamic isn't there. It's not like a, if you want this outcome, you do this first.
Right. What I am doing, and this is being reported back to me, this is why I think I'm thinking about it now, is he's starting to mirror that type of framing with his friends. Like, if you don't play with me in a certain way, I won't be your friend. And that is what you're demonstrating, I guess, is I have the power to withhold, and here's what you must do then.
Yep.
So how is Wiley responding to that?
We started that really when he was really, really young, and that's not something I came up on my own. That is a tactic. It's part of parent management training, and it works really well. So because he responded because it was like, well, I want this thing, and it was always like, I want to play with Legos, but it was time for, school or clean up your room or do something like that. And so it's a reward. It takes it's a positive.
Yeah. That if then does a lot of, I think, what I'm after.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So first and then when it ends, and things like the empathy thing, I was really, well, cause me, I'm very, direct and cut and dry and have been maybe referred to as aggressive before.
That was actually me. I think.
But I had to be really intentional about how I reacted to things. So like instead of putting the upset first, like, so if he does run over his brother and he sees you modeling, like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And like, even if it's like over exaggerated too, because he sees how you respond and then he'll eventually pick it up.
Now, this is where you kind of look back on your parenting and go, oh, the many mistakes I've made. Because one of the things too is we're trying to embrace our children's big feelings, cry. Like there's when he had both of them fell when they were kids, we were like, oh my gosh, what happened? Yeah. Not instead of rushing to empathy, we were rushing to let his state dictate his emotion, right? What I'm hearing you say though is now kind of, are you okay? Creates empathy, which we didn't do that. We did, oh my gosh, how did that happen? Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like I'm up a creek now. No, you're not. And that's like totally something that you just start doing. You're just like saying that like, oh, are you okay? I'm so sorry that happened to you. And Can I help? Using that kind of language. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, like Wiley would fall and I'd be like, what'd you do? But, we never did it in a negative space. It was more just like first, and then he looks up to see that I'm not worried.
Yep.
Because fall happened. Yep. But then that's I think the thing where it makes me think, okay, so he sees fall and he's like, that dude's fine because I've, fallen harder and my dad doesn't do anything.
Oh, no. I think it's just like a little more, and it's a combination because you don't want them to fall apart every time, so you have to strike that balance. And it's, I think I had a little bit of I had a little bit of an edge because I had that parent management training with, somebody taught me that.
I love it. But I think the thing that all of a sudden, because and this is not me trying to make excuses. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, it really does take so much energy to be a caregiver. Because what happens now, your well runs dry. There's all this intentionality that you have to have around, here's my reaction, here's my hope. How in the world do you deal with caregiver burnout so that you're more available?
I think the key is like leaning into those protective factors, making sure that you have, other people to support you when you're stressed out. Like maybe you just need a day. Mom, can you take the kids? Or, friend, neighbor, can you take can you watch my dog? Make sure that you nurture your relationships so that you have supports and being open to feedback and comfortable asking for help and asking for advice and guidance. I think that's the main, and I'm not like burnout proof at all.
Yeah. I am glad you mentioned that though too, because the protective factors they're so huge and we talk about it a lot, but April is coming up.
It is. What are we doing?
Quite a bit actually. It all kind of comes back to how do we stand upon lessons learned and things that we did last year, which last year's campaign was framed around defining prevention and really what prevention is in human terms. Because a lot of the time, and I just noticed this in my own life, I know these factors well. And then the moment my stressors increase, I am not leaning on them the way I should. Hence this whole conversation. Yeah. So last year was all about defining what it is in human terms, what you can do and all these things. And this year, what we're trying to do is create identification. So if we talk about protective factors as these concrete action steps you can do, like you said, watch a neighbor's kid, check in on those neighbors, drop some food off once in a while, see how they're doing, figure out if people need rides somewhere, just be part of that community aspect that is, more of a front porch community. Creating that identification around, look, I am part of the solution. I am prevention. That's this year. I
love that.
Isn't it cool? I mean, it's like, because you can do these things. And so you do them every day. And if you connect with your neighbors, you are that prevention factor. So this year, we're doing a hashtag I am prevention. And we are also basing it around this idea that when you become that factor, what you actually create is space for family joy, which this is not something I thought of. Leah Moran from New Hampshire Healthy Families had said this on a podcast where she said that's the whole point of home visiting. So we want to really center on creating spaces for joy, knowing that when you do that, you temporarily allow for stressors to decrease and resilience and resources to increase. And in that space, good things happen.
I love that. I'm excited. Can't wait to see what you got up your sleeve.
Well, I am graying fast and my stressors, that's why I'm asking.
you need me to walk your dog?
Oh my gosh, I need you to walk me. Oh my God. But yeah, I'm excited for this too, and it should be a really great year. And a lot of family serving organizations, the state, private, they're coming out of the woodwork. Even we built out this Businesses That Build Family campaign. So we've got a lot of people talking about it from the lens of how they create businesses that are family friendly and what that means. So I would say keep your eyes out and visit the website.
Will do. Thanks.
So Joelyn, it's awesome to see you. I'm so glad you're back, and I am going to be on the dark web looking for more family secrets.
Excellent. I'm glad to see me too.
And when we come back, I interview Anthony Payton, father, author, and nonprofit founder. Don't go anywhere. Many thanks to New Hampshire's Office of Social and Emotional Wellness for sponsoring this podcast. Started within New Hampshire's Department of Education, the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness consolidates policy development and implements projects and programs that are focused on health and wellness with an emphasis on behavioral health of all students, youth, and families. To learn more about the Department of Education and its many programs and approaches, visit www.education.nh.gov. Today's show was also brought to you by Merrimack County Savings Bank, who proudly supports the mission and efforts of New Hampshire Children's Trust. Founded in 1867, Merrimack has served people, businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities in central and southern New Hampshire for over 155 years by treating everyone with care, respect, and compassion. Visit your local offices in Bow, Concord, Kentucky, Hooksett, and Nashua, or go to www.themerrimack.com. New Hampshire Family Now is a proud participant in the Your Voice campaign. Together, the Parent Information Center, New Hampshire Family Voices, and New Hampshire Children's Trust have launched a statewide campaign dedicated to celebrating the critical role family voice plays in shaping services and systems throughout the Granite State. Because questions families ask and the information they share often makes a difference in understanding a diagnosis, building an effective treatment plan, and informing the services they use every day. To learn more about the campaign, go to nhchildrenstrust.org/yourvoice or picnh.org/yourvoice. Hello and welcome to the pod. Today, I'm incredibly excited to welcome Anthony Payton, author, podcast host, dad, aspiring nonprofit founder, and so much more. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nathan. Thank you for having me.
So a few weeks ago, I came across your 603 diversity essay, Mental Health, the Common Denominator. And I got to say, I was immediately taken by the grace of your prose. And so I started digging and found essay after essay after essay, all of them vulnerable and beautifully rendered, with titles including Own Worst Enemy, I'm a Father, Indoors, Mostly Domesticated, if you will. Stay tuned, this comeback story is just beginning. And immediately I thought back to that mental health essay I first read, where you discuss being a cook at the Cypress Center, a short-term care facility for those experiencing psychiatric emergency. Given that this is in many ways a comeback story, where are we coming back from?
Well, me in particular, I recently, and I'm pretty, open and candid about my past. So I'm coming back from a nearly 7-year federal incarceration. I think I just passed the 2-year mark of being completely out. So for me, that comeback was dealing with all the trials and tribulations that I went through during that period. Also the growth and the trajectory that I happen to be on right now. And so it's just coming back from the bottomless, abyss to a certain extent that I made the most of. Dealing with that population there kind of like runs hand in hand.
Yeah. Given your life experiences, how have you come to writing as an essayist as a way to maybe process what has happened and give yourself and others a way to grow from it? Why do this?
See, writing, I've always loved writing ever since I was small, like, as a young introvert growing up in the projects of Brooklyn, New York. And throughout incarceration, it felt as if it was therapeutic. It kept me out of the way. I've always had teachers and college professors, like, yeah, you're a very good writer. You need to do something with it. But it also paints my story. And, in painting my story, I'm finding out that I'm laying a canvas for tons of people, who have been through similar experiences, who have been through trauma, post-traumatic stress disorders and things along those lines. So I think I've reached a great amount of people. It's good for my soul when I'm able to touch people, when I'm able to share my story and have it possibly help them or give them some type of navigation.
How did you then come to find yourself up in New Hampshire working in and around Manchester?
I was in Rhode Island first, and then I left New York and went to Rhode Island for, to visit friends, and they had friends that were up here in New Hampshire. Back then, I was a very big risk taker. I made some poor decisions, which landed me as a resident in New Hampshire State Prison, and then I got out and I began to make a life for myself. To be quite honest, growing up in Brooklyn, New York is one thing, but to then be in New Hampshire and taking in northern New England for all that it has, it's been a learning experience as well. So,
well, in one of your essays, I came across what felt like a series of mantras, which were very powerful to me. And I would love for you to expound on them a little bit.
Right.
Never settle into the mindset that you're owed anything.
You don't want to feel like you're owed anything, because you'll tend to sit on your heels instead of being assertive and trying to ascertain goals and deadlines. In my opinion, it just puts you in a position to where you're waiting for something and you have this chip on your shoulder, and that chip on your shoulder can cloud vision and cloud judgment. So I believe that when you remove those things, you have more clarity. And, this isn't just for Black people or Black youth. It goes to anyone who's been wronged or who was a victim in some sense. Justice may not come in the form of anything monetarily, or the person who wronged you going to prison, or even an apology. So, if something comes along the lines in terms of retribution, then fine, but don't wait on it.
Include yourself, but be inclusive of others.
Right. That's very big, because I think I described how sometimes we tend to complain that we weren't offered a seat at the table. And so my mind frame is like, look, we have to find out where those tables are. Like, let's say they're government auctions, that you can buy, property and vehicles and stuff for pennies on the dollar. You have to find out where those auctions are. You have to attend that seminar on wealth building, where the rest of the audience may not look like you. So as you become accustomed to doing those things, and bring others with you as well. And again, it's not just a Black thing either, even though that's who, for the most part, I'm speaking to. But, it goes to anyone that's marginalized. You can take the single white mother who lives, in the hills of North Conway. I've been up that way. And she may not be privy to where these auctions and things like that are. Ex-military veterans, the same mentality applies. It's like we have to go out and seek what's not readily available to us. And of course, it's not fair or things like that, but it's just, you have to have that go button to actually find it. So include yourself, like get in the mix of it.
Last one, aspire to be the leader and uplifting citizen that you have the potential to be.
That kind of goes into like leading by example. You have to be able to cut off generations of nonsense. You may watch your uncle or your father and things like that go through things that you don't want to go through. So it's on your shoulders to live a different life or to move a different way and help build your communities up, because maybe you didn't have a good role model, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a good role model. And great nations, they aren't built by complacency or by being selfish. It's just that part on giving, and that would make you a great leader and help build your communities.
Now, I know you are a father, as am I. And when I see this list, I desperately want all of these things for my children. How do you go about teaching these things to yours?
Every time I step out of my comfort zone and push myself, I need them to know about it and see it, and it's not in a narcissistic type of, like, look at me, but it's like, look, dad isn't just talking and preaching. No, I'm out here doing it. Even when I went to Franklin Pierce and, was on a stage and, live audience, like that's way outside of my comfort zone, but I'm always preached to try to talk to the kids about, you don't grow unless you get out of that comfort zone. That's one of the biggest ways that I teach my kids. And even, the life that I live now, my youngest daughter doesn't know the whole scope of it, but at some point she will. And I can still use these times as a point of reference. Basically, to answer the question, it's doing it, talking it, talking it and walking it, so. Yeah.
Now, this might be silly, but how do you teach these things to yourself?
That's another good question. Well, I continue to learn and study some of the greats in my book. I grew up one housing projects away from Jay-Z, and to see what he's been through and to see where he now is, that's inspiring. And it isn't just men and women on that level. The brave firefighter or the military veteran. There's a lot to be learned from those guys, those men and women, school teachers and nurses. The Cypress Center, a lot of those nurses and counselors in it, they're very selfless. They stay up long hours and come in early in the morning. And, so I try to keep a wide array of influences and just get that stimulus from everywhere.
Now, you two have launched a podcast called the Common Ground Initiative, which you write aims to highlight the diversity of our communities with stories of people the average Granite Stater might not get to see. And I want to take a moment to play a brief section from an essay called The View from Outside My Comfort Zone.
My oldest stepson, Terrell Whitted, gets plenty of time on my social media feeds. Terrell is one of the most colorful young men that I know, comfortable in his truth, comfortable in his skin. I came into Terrell's life when he was about 12 years old, when his mother and I first met. I never tried to take on the role of dad with him or his younger brother, Tavon. As time went on, my duty was to provide some guidance and protect them from the world as best I could. Back then, I knew Terrell would be unique but different. He seemed to be gender fluid before the term ever became popular. He was just a preteen.
Now, in this essay, you talk about your role as a stepfather to a gender fluid stepson by role modeling, guiding, and protecting, and then how that intersects with having been raised in a hyper-masculine environment. And you address evolving to meet this child in your care where he's at. Do you have any advice for fathers out there on that evolution and process so we can all be more supportive of our children no matter where they wind up?
Right. So I implore guys who are like myself or who are struggling with that question to really just remember that tomorrow isn't promised, and look at our world right now. We need to be raising young men to be confident and strong. And the look of confident and strong doesn't necessarily have to be the muscle-bound kid who knows MMA. He might be gender fluid. But if he still has those good goals and being raised the right way, I think they'll be fine. So it's just on trying to as men and as fathers, sometimes we have to recalibrate. And we have to recalibrate a little bit. It differs on how we were raised. It's just sitting back and watching that child grow into him. You're trying to mold greatness. And sometimes molding, it doesn't take you to actually make that shape. Like the shape will form itself, and your input is strong and it's powerful. And just be mindful. Again, like I said, I can't, because it took me being removed from society to really appreciate him in his entirety. Again, just remember, tomorrow is not promised. Who knows what's going to happen, the way this world is moving now. So be supportive. At the end of the day, all you have left is memories. And, did I do a good enough of a job? Those are some of the things that helped change me.
I keep thinking of Dwayne Wade. I look at him and his response to his youngest son and the incredible individual his son has become.
That's a perfect example of being supportive. And even I think Magic Johnson probably to an extent too. He comes from like a little older school, but D Wade is definitely a great example of supporting that young child.
Now, I know you will be launching a nonprofit. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, what you will be trying to accomplish with it, and how somebody can get involved?
Right. So our nonprofit is called the BOSS Initiative, the next chapter. And BOSS is an acronym for beating the odds and striving for success. The co-founders is Anthony Harris, who many people know here in Manchester as he ran for alderman, Antonio Maben, who's in Nashua, and my brother Chris Payton, who's in New York. Our goal is to help men and women walk that path from prison to prosperity. And we're doing everything from job training to job placement. We're looking to implement mental health and affordable housing, at some point. That's on our list. And, and just that good old peer-to-peer conversations, peer-to-peer counseling, peer-to-peer helping navigate, muddy waters. So that's our goal. And that's what we look to help bring down the recidivism rate, because it's astronomical. We just hope that the community is supportive of our endeavor. There's not too many people who want to tackle this issue outside of the government with halfway houses and stuff like that. But it still has to go to different points, because I feel like myself and, Anthony Harris and Antonio Maben, like, we're those success stories that people should want to know about, because there's so many, like, you hear the guy on parole that just stuck up and robbed the bank and things like that. And that does happen. But there is another side to that. There are plenty of successful men and women who are on that right path, who are living the right lives and doing what they need to do to help better their families and help better their community. So we just want people to keep their eyes and ears open and hearts and minds open as well.
Well, you let me know that Children's Trust is deeply invested in making sure that families, no matter what they look like, be successful and thrive. So I'd love to align our efforts wherever we can.
Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate you, man. And thank you. I'm glad we made this connection.
To learn more about Anthony, his writings, and the Common Ground Initiative, visit collaborativeh.org/Common Ground Initiative. Again, that's collaborativeh.org/Common Ground Initiative.
And it's because of my relationship with him that I'm able to look at his community from a different perspective. Watching him excel in college, at his job, in his music, and in his life has shown me that manhood can be manifested the way that it suits the individual. It's his life, and I'm glad to be a part of it. If there are any men out there raising young boys like Terrell was, I implore you to begin the process of accepting and supporting them. Your idea of masculinity may manifest differently from his. Don't give up on him. Don't miss out on the opportunity to watch a young boy turn into a great man. I've never met Terrell's biological father, but if he's reading this, I'll say to him, thank you.
Many thanks to the Samuel P. Hunt Foundation for sponsoring this podcast. Established in 1951, Samuel P. Hunt Foundation is a Manchester-based, independent nonprofit that provides grants primarily for the arts, children and youth services, faith-based organizations, educational institutions, healthcare, and human services. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.